Hello everyone, and welcome to our Palworld Survivor Guide. We are talking about elements today because they play a very important role in Palworld. At least, if you want to make life a little bit easier on you, you don't have to worry about elements, but instead just go with like a brute strength strategy. But for those who want to play a little bit more strategically, you need to know about elements. So basically, elements are the kind of type that each pal has. It's similar to Pokemon, I suppose, in the sense that it's like the type of Pokemon. This is like the element type of the pal, and there are 9 elements. There's ground, electric, water, fire, grass, ice, dragon, dark, and neutral. And the little critters here, the pals, they can have one, or they can have like a few of these types. For example, these guys, these are all just neutral. You can tell by the brown little background with the like bullseye symbol on it. That is for neutral. We have the grass type right here, a plant grass, whatever. There with a little leaf in the green. This guy here is a ground type, brown with like a rock on it. But for those who have double, like the Pangullet, he's actually got ice and water, so he's an ice element and a water element. And that matters because certain types of elements are stronger than others. And you might be wondering, cool, what is that? Like, what do we do to figure that out? Which type is better than the other, or not necessarily better, but stronger. And that's actually in your survival guide. If you press like escape or pause, you go to the survival guide. Go ahead and scroll down until you get to elements, and they have this very, very useful chart here that basically shows you which is stronger than the next. So starting with ground, we'll just start with ground anyway. Ground is particularly strong against electric, which is strong against water, which is strong against fire, and fire is strong against grass, which is strong against ground, and fire is also strong against ice, which is strong against dragon, which is strong against dark, and that is strong against neutral. So, and you can think of this as like the reverse. So like neutral would be weak to dark, dark is weak to dragon, dragon is weak to ice, and so on. So a way you could think about kind of like, I mean, I guess in some way it kind of makes sense. Like, yeah, plants and fire, they don't really get along. Fire melts ice, that makes sense. Water puts out fire. So like in a way it kind of makes sense. Some of these weird ones like dragon and dark, you just kind of have to accept it as it is. And I guess like one of like the key things to think about when it comes to this sort of thing is that for all your neutral creatures, and there are quite a few, especially starter pets or pals, they aren't necessarily strong against anything. Like they're just kind of neutral, really. They'll do like a decent job, but they won't do as decent of a job as like we'll say like an ice for a dragon type. Excuse me. So like they're not the greatest fighters. Basically, I would definitely kind of keep neutral pals at your base, maybe to do work, and then maybe have like a few other element types to defend your base if needed. The other kind of thing to think about, for one, is that fire is strong against 2 types, which is pretty awesome. So, fire, not a bad type of pal to look for. But also, when it comes to, like, these double element types, like the Pangullet, as a water and a fire elemental type, that basically means, where are we at here? We're just past it. There we are. That Pangullet is strong both against fire types and also dragon types. But that said, of course, obviously it's also weak to electric and fire types. So, like, this might be kind of, like, iffy, potentially, depending on the levels at that point. But when you have a pal that has 2 different types, that's they tend to be a little bit more useful in combat because you can potentially use them against 2 different types of element pals. So, and again, it all depends on what those types are, but it's kind of nice. So like looking for pals that have at least like 2 elements attached to them could be a kind of like a nice way to be a little bit more efficient with like making your party, because then you can potentially like go after 2 different types of element pals with just one party setup. Because currently I'm just kind of like leveling up my fires right now. These are all my fire types. So I could use this group here to go fight against ice types and grass types, and do a pretty decent job with that. But they're just like, granted these are fire, so they technically have 2. But like if I was going to do something like if I had if I had a party of just ground type, we'll say, that'd be really good against electric, but it wouldn't be like amazing for anything else, is what I'm basically trying to say. But whereas if you have somebody who has 2 of these, you might be good for like water types and like grass types, depending on what it is. So that's pretty awesome. But that's basically how it works, and it's something to keep in mind, especially when it comes to fighting like tower bosses or bosses that you find out in the world. Just figure out like what type they have of their, like what type the pal is, or what type of pal the tower boss is using, and then build your party accordingly. Like if I believe like let's say let's say the tower boss, it has a pal that's like an ice type. We'll just say that's what the case is. So I would just bring in a bunch of fire pals, probably like a good collection of them, so they can have like different attacks and whatnot, and that would do a substantial amount of damage to the ice. It would bring them down really, really quickly, as opposed to like bringing anything else that just wouldn't quite hit as hard, so the fight would be a little bit more difficult. But that's about it for element and type and how that works in Palworld. Hopefully that's a little bit helpful. It can be eventually, the more that we play this, like we'll have it memorized as to like what element is strong against what element and stuff like that. But that's just that's just really much just kind of how much you spend time in the game and how well your memory is and all that. Mine's pathetic, so it'll take me quite a little bit to remember what's strong against what. But hopefully you found that helpful, a little bit more clear on how element type works. And if you have any questions, go ahead and ask me in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you in the next one. Until then, keep surviving and keep thriving.